welcome back to Lost in Translation. My name is Nico, and this week we are looking at the Torah portion of Shoftim and the 10 things that you will miss if you are only reading the Torah portion in English. So let's get started right away with number 1. Righteousness, righteousness. There we go. Righteousness, righteousness shall you pursue. Tzedek, tzedek, tuduf lema'an ticheh. Right? That we shall live long on the land, right? And so righteousness, righteousness. You know, in the Torah, when we have a word repeated in succession like this, it's bringing importance to that concept. But at the same time, here we're understanding that, righteousness can only be sought through righteousness. We can't do something that is prohibited in order for a righteous end, right? So this is a key point in the Torah where we're being warned not to justify immoral action, some sort of wrong action in order to achieve a good end. Good ends come from good action, and bad ends come from bad action. Seeking righteousness through some sort of immorality will always end in immorality. So that's what we're being warned about right here. Number 2, trees and pillars. So we have to remember here that Moshe Rabbenu is instructing this young nation that's about to go into the land what they need to do to establish their country, some way of living as an established society in a fixed place instead of this nomadic society that they've been for the last 40 years, right? And there's been a lot of talk about judging and keeping the rules. And so here we're told that that you shall not plant an asherah, or it's this is understood to be an idolatrous tree, or to set up some sort of monument or a pillar that Hashem hates, right? That somehow these are connected back to idolatry. But we also have to understand that in the ancient world, that temples and courthouses and palaces were adorned with landscaping. There would be extra pillars around. There would be lots of trees and gardens to make a place look more grand. And here we're being really told that it's so much more important about what's going on in the courthouse, right? That there's righteous judgment and that bribery isn't happening, right? Then what's going on outside the courthouse, trees and pillars and such. So much so, the practice of adorning these places has now been prohibited by the Torah so that people can focus on the function of the place that it should be for righteousness. Number 3, testimony of 2 witnesses. Okay, so this is a little more literal translation here. Al pi shna'im edim o shlosha edim, right? So 2 or 3 witnesses, and by the mouth or for pi, or by the testimony of 2 or 3 witnesses shall one be liable to be put to death. So they're saying here is that, you don't take one witness, right? One witness alone can't be corroborated. There must be some way of corroborating the testimony against somebody. Now, these witnesses are are supremely important to capital cases or any case, right? And we've talked about this concept in the past that that these people are supposed to be well learned in the Torah. They're supposed to shout out and warn the perpetrator not to do something, and he has to respond to them and commit the crime anyway. And only under these circumstances is a capital case, um, yeah, judged as a conviction, right? Now, here also, it's the hand of the witnesses are first put against him. So if this person is to be put to death, the witnesses are the ones that are meant to initiate the execution. So this idea of testifying against somebody, I mean, it places the witness in the position to be the executioner, because really the witness is condemning them to death through his words. And so now they have to execute the death sentence with their own hands. So if it's a stoning or something, I mean, these people's hands are the first to initiate the process, right? I don't know how much that actually had in practice, but at least, you know, in purpose, testifying against somebody in a capital case really is you putting them to death. And so this correlation between the two actions side by side reminds us how, reminds us of the gravity of what this testimony is. Number 4, according to the teaching. Okay, so the court system has been established, but the court system isn't only about punishing crimes, it's also about interpreting the law. And so we have this, this establishment that there are the Levites, the Kohanim, right? And the judges, that if there's a question about how to practice Torah, eventually we bring it to the court and they're going to make a determination. And we're going to keep that law according to the law that they instruct you. So this is the part here. This one verse in the Torah, not the many verses, but specifically this verse is what sets up the authority of the rabbinical establishment, the rabbinical court. So now that we don't have the temple and the Sanhedrin cannot exist without the temple, we still have this rabbinical court process. And this is the verse specifically in the Torah that gives them their authority, that we should listen to them and that we should not diverge from the word that they tell us, right? So does it mean that there aren't differing opinions? No, that's not what it means. There are different opinions and different traditions, and different rabbis will hold different opinions. But in the event that we have a Sanhedrin, this high court, when they make a judgment on an issue, all Jews everywhere are meant to keep that. Okay. Number 5, a king of Israel. We spend a lot of time talking about courts. Now we're trying to establish, the rest of the country, the rest of the leadership, and we're being told right here, okay, when you come into the land, and I will set a king over myself, like all the nations around me. Well, we have to understand that the function of the king in Israel is different from the function of the king in another country, right? Other nations, they have kings, they have leaders who want to be leaders. They have leaders who seek power for their own purposes. But here, the king of Israel is best someone who doesn't want to be king, right? That this is an office that they fill in service to Hashem and service to his country, right? And so, you know, to some extent, they might look like a king similar to the nations around us, but the Torah starts off right away telling us that it can't be a foreigner, it can't be somebody outside the community. This king has to be a naturally born Jewish man. Okay. Um, and unlike other kings, he's given limitations by the Torah that he's not supposed to acquire many horses. He's not, so that it won't bring the people back to Egypt, right? This idea of connecting back to the egoism of Egypt. The king isn't supposed to do the things that other worldly kings do that will make Israel egotistical, right? He's not supposed to take many wives for himself, and he's not supposed to acquire too much silver and gold to, for his own glory. Now, he's a king. He's supposed to maintain some sort of grandeur to establish the office, because his grandeur is the grandeur of the people, but it's only supposed to be sufficient for his service, not for his own egotistical gain. So we're told what the courts are supposed to be like, and now we're being told what the king is supposed to be like. And both offices, both arms of government are directly established to serve Hashem in a way that we don't find in the other nations. And number 6, priestly gifts. The priests and the Levites, Kohanim, Levim, the entire tribe of Levi, they have no portion in the inheritance with Israel. They don't get any land like the rest of the tribes. So here again, we are seeing provisions that that the people should offer a tenth of their produce to support this tribe, so that this tribe, like the king, becomes dedicated to his service, like the judges become dedicated to their righteous judgment. Now we want to have the Levite tribe and the priestly caste of the Levite tribe to be completely dedicated to their work for Hashem, so that they don't have to worry about their economic needs, right? That the people of the rest of the people of Israel take care of this caste, because it's not that the Levites aren't doing any work. They're doing a lot of work. Their job is to keep Torah, to study Torah, and to teach Torah. So without them, it's very easy for the rest of us to become so wrapped up in the economic need of our lives that we don't concentrate on Torah the way that we ought to. And now we have a portion of the community that is committed to this, and so our work should go to support them. Now, without the temple, Levim and Kohanim, they have proper jobs. They take care of themselves in this point of history. But we have this system where we're able to give something from our own produce in a way that helps us work against our egos as well. So whether the whether the temple is in existence or not, we still give this tenth in order to help work against our egos. Number 7, prophets. This is interesting because we just have this portion that warns us against charmers and sorcerers and fortune tellers, that this is something that other countries do. They try to look for signs for future events so that they can know what to do, looking at the stars, astrology. However, we're warned that that is not what we're supposed to do, that we're supposed to be wholeheartedly pursuing Hashem, and that Hashem will take care of the rest. But still, sometimes we look for ways that that Hashem might communicate with us, and the Torah, now that it's given us provisions for the courts, kings, the priests, and the Levim, now they're saying, okay, it might be that you have a prophet that shows up to communicate something to you, and this person will be from among your brothers, right? And you'll listen to him because he says things, that he understands things, and he gives signs, and you can understand that somehow maybe he's connected to Hashem. Well, first of all, we're no longer in a prophetic age. Nobody is reaching this position of prophecy in a way that the entire community can rely on nowadays. Is that to say that we never achieve this? No. But we don't have anybody with authority standing up saying, Hashem spoke to me. It's just not something that happens in modern Judaism. Does it mean it'll never happen again? No, but it's a very special case. But we're being told very specifically that that this person, that they should only ever speak exactly what they're told from Hashem, and if they use their authority as a prophet to say things other than what they were told from Hashem, then we're not to listen to them. And we're told what we can do to understand if a prophet is true. That if he says that there will be an event and it takes place, then you can trust, this person is connected to Hashem. But if the events that he talks about don't take place, now you have a sure sign that he isn't connected to Hashem, right? And there's also a punishment for people to take this power of prophecy, or to assume the position of prophecy for their own gain, or to lie about it. But these people are put to death, right? It's a capital offense. False prophecy, the method of execution is strangulation, right? So this is it's not a nice way to go. The point is that we have a way. The Torah gives us a way to determine what is sorcery, what is prophecy, what kind of prophet we should listen to, and what kind of prophet we shouldn't listen to. And so if we have been exposed to some sort of other revelation, either from ancient days or modern times, we're supposed to weigh that revelation against these words. And we should look for rabbinic and Torah advice on how to handle that. Number 8, conspiring witnesses. Okay, so now we're back to this idea of witnesses. We were talking about manslaughter. The Torah covers manslaughter, cities of refuge again. And now it comes back to this idea that one witness shall not rise up against any person, right? So again, by the mouth of two witnesses or three. And now it covers this idea of false witnesses, the Zamimim, right? And we find them, the court was meant to find out if witnesses were false by really examining both their testimony in separated situations to really see if these people were telling the same story or not. If they could have been there, they were supposed to investigate, from the other people around them. Was it possible for this person to be there to see this event, or has somebody witnessed seen that this conspirator, this false witness, in another place at the time that the crime happened? So it was impossible for him to be a witness, right? Well, the way that the Torah handles false witnesses is to punish them with the same punishment that they intended upon their victim, right? So if it was a capital case, these witnesses are put to death. If it was a civil case, whatever monetary fine might have been placed upon their victim, they now have to pay. If it was a crime that incurred lashes, they get lashed, right? So the way that the Jewish court system, the religious court system, was kept clean of false witnesses was that there was real danger that a false witness would get the punishment that they were intending for their victim to receive. Okay. Number 9, war. Courts are established, the priests are established, there's a king, everything is coming together. And now the Torah is telling us what the country should do about war. War is going to happen. But again, the war for Israel as a state externally with other neighbors, or the war that we might fight inside with our own egoism. There's always this duality to Torah, that we can see how it's possibly a document talking about corporeal things, but really it's always a spiritual document. So in this spiritual document, we need to understand who is the king, where is the court, where are the priests, what is this tent, and what is war? Well, my enemy, when I'm trying to connect to Hashem, my enemy is always my own egoism, my egotistical desire, right? And that we need to understand that Hashem, who brought us out of Egypt, is also going to fight these wars for us, that there are so many more numerous nations out there, desires beyond our spirituality, and that we're not to be afraid of them, right? And in this idea of corporality, there is a system by which the people who are afraid are told to go away. The priests will take care of this and get the fearful to go home. The people who haven't fulfilled other responsibilities are meant to go home. Well, there is also this process for us in our spiritual wars, that this quality of priesthood comes to, we can purify our efforts by, sending that fearful part away, or taking care of other business first. And through the practice of Torah, we make ourselves ready to confront this spiritual challenge. Okay. Number 10, the unsolved murder. Okay, this is the last point for this portion. This idea that maybe there's a corpse that's found out in the fields, and we don't know where it came from. we don't know the circumstances of the death, that means that there can't be a judgment, that there's still innocent blood, or perhaps innocent blood that's been shed in the land of Israel, and we need some sort of purification process. And the elders of the cities that are around here are supposed to go and to the site of the murder. There's supposed to be an investigation. What is the closest city? And that closest city is now supposed to offer a sacrifice of a young cow in the place where the murder happened, right? That this It's interesting here that the calf is right, that they will bring to that place egelah, right? And if we remember, this egel is the same word that we use for the golden calf, right? So again, we have this conceptual link back that somehow there's been a sin that has brought this innocent blood into the land, and that the way that we atone for this is to attack that sin again, right? To go back to rededicating ourselves to Hashem by adjusting that what takes us away from Hashem, right? So in the end, the murder may never be solved, but the point is for the community to acknowledge that there was a problem in their actions, and to try to rededicate themselves as a community so that these injustices won't continue to happen. All right. Thank you very much. I hope that was interesting and useful. If there's something you found in this portion that's exciting to you, please share it with me in the comments. And as always, I invite you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and until next time, be well.